Hi, everybody. Because we're going to be out for a little bit and we just started this great book, I thought I would take some time and read Post It. What I'm going to do is read it from the beginning. So for those of you that don't remember, you can be reminded. And for those of you that didn't get a chance to start it, here's the beginning. So it's posted by John David Anderson. See, there you go. So we're going to start at the very beginning. Prologue. I push my way through the buzzing mob and freeze, heart-struck, dizzy. It takes me a minute to really get what I'm looking at. Notes, at least 100 of them, pressed all over the freshly painted locker. Some clump together, overlap like roof shingles. Others orbit like satellites reaching up toward the wall. They vary in color, pale blue, fluorescent pink, lime green, but most of them are yellow, like dandelions before they fluff white and wither away. I stand motionless and read a few of them, softly enough so only I can hear. They are just words, and they are not just words. I think about everything that's happened, about Bench and Dee Dee and Rose and Wolf, about all the terrible things that were said, about the things that shouldn't have been said, that should have been said and weren't. There was a war. This was where it ended. I can't tell you exactly when it changed, when it spiraled out of control like a kite twisting in the wind, when it stopped being something funny and clever and became something else. Maybe there was no single moment. Maybe underneath all the squares plastered on the walls and the notebooks and the windows, there was the same message over and over. We just ignored it because it was easier to stomach. And now I'm standing here, dumbstruck, wondering if this changes everything. I know what you're going to say. Sticks, stones, and broken bones. But words can kick you in the gut. They wriggle underneath your skin and start to itch. They set their hooks into you and pull. Words accumulate like a cancer, and then they can eat away at you until there's nothing left. And once they are let loose, there really is no taking them back. Truth is, I can't tell you exactly when it changed. I can tell you how it started, though, and I can tell you how it ended. I will do my best to line up the dots in between, and I'll leave it up to you to draw the line. Next chapter, The Catalyst. It started with Ruby Sandals. That's her name, swear to God, Ruby freaking Sandals. Yes, sandals aren't slippers, which would have been worse, and it's not even spelled the same, but it still counts as a form of child abuse, IMO. Might as well just fix her black hair into a permanent ponytail. Buy her a shaggy terrier to stuff into a wicker basket and teach her how to sing about rainbows. I'm sure her parents thought that they were being cute with that name, but a thing like that could mess up a kid for life. It didn't, though. Mess her up for life, that is. But only because Ruby looked nothing like a lost farm girl from Kansas. With her dark brown skin and tight jeans, Ruby was no Dorothy, and she was hard-nosed enough to stare down anyone who even thought about teasing her, which was always somebody. This was middle school. Everyone got teased by somebody sometime about something. At the very least, Ruby would give back double what she got. You had to admire that. Don't get the wrong idea. Ruby and I weren't friends. I will just say that up front. In fact, you can just assume that anybody I talk about isn't a friend of mine unless explicitly stated otherwise. Ruby was just a girl who sat in front of me in math class and ignored me out of habit. She had a backpack covered in fake sapphires. You didn't have to look close to tell the dark blue stones weren't real. This is Branton, not Beverly Hills. Anything flashy around here is fake. That's Branton, Michigan, by the way. Don't try to find it on a map. You'll need a microscope. It's one of a dozen dinky towns north of Lansing, one of the few that doesn't sound like it was named by a French explorer. Branton, Michigan. Population not a lot, and yet still too many I don't particularly care for. We have a shopping mall with a JCPenney and an Asian fusion place that everyone says they are dying to try, even though it's been there for 3 years now. Most of the other restaurants are attached to gas stations, the kind that serve rubbery purple hot dogs and sodas in buckets. There's a statue of Francis B. Stockbridge in the center of town. He's a Michigan state senator from prehistoric times with the beard that belongs on Rapunzel's twin brother. He wasn't born in Branton, of course. Nobody important was ever born in Branton. But we needed a statue for the front of the courthouse, and the name Stockbridge looks good on a copper plate. It's all for show. Branton's the kind of place that tries to pretend it's better than what it really is. It's really the kind of place with more bars than bookstores and more churches than either. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's a place where teenagers still sometimes take baseball bats to mailboxes, and wearing the wrong brand of shoes gets you at least a dirty look. It snowed a lot in Branton, like avalanche dumped from the sky. like heaps to hills to mountains, the plows carving their paths through the neighborhood, creating alpine ranges nearly tall enough to ski down. Some of the snow mounds are so big you can build houses inside them, complete with entryways and coat closets. Restrooms are down the hall to your right. Just look for the steaming yellow hole. There's nothing like that first Branton snow, though. Soft as cat scruff and bleach white. So bright you can almost see your reflection in it. Then the plows come and churn up the earth underneath. The dirt and the boot tracks and the car exhaust mix together to make it all ash gray, almost black, and it sickens your stomach just to look at it. It happens everywhere, not just Branton, but here it's something you can count on. But I was telling you about how it started, the band and the notes and the war that followed. I was telling you about Ruby Sandals getting into trouble, getting us all into trouble. Also, just so you know, this isn't Ruby's story. She's what chemistry teachers call a catalyst, something that jumpstarts a reaction. The thing about Ruby, like pretty much every other kid in Branton Middle School, me being the one exception, is that she was never without her phone, despite the rule against having them out in class. Nobody followed that rule. If the teacher's back was turned, texts, tweets, and ticked-off birds were flying. Videos were being downloaded. Villages were being raided, and walls were being posted on. Everybody did it. And if I was lucky enough to have a phone, if it ever did fit into the budget, I would have done it too, which is why it wasn't unusual to see Ruby taking furtive glances at her lap during class. The problem was, on this day, she decided to do it in math, with Miss Shears. Unlike Ruby, don't ever call me Dorothy Sandals, Miss Shears lived up to her name. Sharp as a scalpel, with thin lips and dagger eyes, nothing escaped her. She wasn't like Mr. Hostler, nearsighted, and 3 years from retirement, only really concerned with getting home and finding out who won Dancing with the Stars. You could come to class newborn naked, and Mr. Hostler would probably just sigh and check you off the attendance sheet. Miss Shears, on the other hand, was a bloodhound. That didn't make her a bad teacher necessarily, but she wasn't the sort to look the other way when she saw the flash of light glinting off Ruby's phone, or heard the nearly imperceptible click of Ruby's painted nails on the screen. She zeroed in on the desk like a sniper, then snapped her fingers and opened her hand. Let's have it. Have what? The phone, Ruby. I don't have a phone, Ruby said, sounding suddenly Dorothy-like, all innocent as she attempted to slide the phone she didn't have into her glitzy bag. Unfortunately, it caught the edge of the pocket and clattered much too loudly on the ground. Naturally, this was hilarious, at least to everyone but Miss Shears, who shot down the aisle, reached for it hawk-like, snatching it out from underneath Ruby's fingers. Give me my phone back, Ruby said, her face suddenly flushed, lunging upward as Miss Shears held it out of her reach. You don't have a phone, Miss Shears reminded her. She looked at Ruby's screen, and her expression changed. Jekyll to Hyde. If it was possible for a teacher to be pretty, Miss Shears might qualify. But when she looked at that screen, her face transformed into something pinched and contorted, like she had just taken a swallow of rancid milk. She looked from the phone to Ruby, then back to the phone. Ruby's eyes fell to her desk, head dropping so fast you would have thought someone had tied an anchor to her chin. Is this? Miss Shears stammered. Did you? Judging by the lack of response, the rest of us could only assume that it was, and she did. About half a dozen students, me included, telescoped our necks to get a look at the screen, but Miss Shears pressed the phone close to her chest. We all turned and looked expectantly at Ruby, waiting for her to come back. Sarcastic or apologetic, it could go either way. I found that kids will apologize instantly if they think that will keep them from getting out of trouble. I know I will. But there are sometimes you just know an apology, even one you actually mean, won't be enough. Then it's best to just keep your mouth shut. I'm guessing that's what Ruby Sandals was thinking, because she didn't say a word at first, just blushed and refused to look up. Miss Shears took a deep breath. You understand we need to go see Mr. Whittingham. Low murmurs among the class. The big ham. Principal Whittingham was even more hardcore than Miss Shears. You could sometimes feel the tremors when he shouted at a kid from behind his office door. Ruby's head snapped up. But Miss Shears, I didn't mean anything by it. It's just talk. She knew she was in it deep. Suddenly I felt bad for her. Miss Shears had her Gorgon scare on, the one that turns you straight to stone. The phone still pressed to her heart. This isn't a game, Ruby. It's one thing to violate school policy and use your phone in class, but this? Miss Shears looked at the phone again, as if to confirm that what she had seen the first time wasn't a trick of her imagination. Her face nodded up again, and she shook her head. This is inexcusable, which meant that whatever it was, it must have been good. Ruby Sandals groaned and angrily stuffed her notebook into her pack. Then we watched her be escorted to the front door. I will be back in 2 minutes, Miss Shears warned, Take this opportunity to complete the problems on your sheet silently." We all nodded meekly. Miss Shears closed the door, and at least 20 other phones flew out of pockets and backpacks as we all tried to figure out just what it was that Ruby had done, the wonderfully terrible things that she had said. Behind me, Jasmine Jones squealed and clasped her hand over her mouth. She showed the phone to Samantha Bowles. Not Bowles, I made that mistake once, only once. "Oh, no, she didn't," Samantha said, eyes wide. And apparently, yes, she did. And we were all about to pay for it. We're going to stop there, and I will continue next time. See you soon.